Hey there. Hey there. Welcome to this week's episode of Next Level Play Therapy, where we talk about all things play therapy with the whole intent of making a difference in the lives of children around the world. So, if you are joining me live today, welcome. And if you're watching on the replay or you are listening on the podcast, welcome, welcome, welcome. So, I don't know about you, and I'm curious. So, those of you who have ever felt this way, feel free to raise your virtual hand, even if it's your inside virtual hand. Um, how many of you have ever felt this way, which is that you feel lost, like you're feeling stuck, you don't know what to do, you're feeling lost in the play therapy process. So then maybe you start using a bunch of different activities and trying to see what works and hoping something works. Or maybe you just have a really hard client, a really complex client, and you're in that middle phase, or maybe even in the beginning phase, and feeling like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help this client. Or maybe some of you are thinking, I I don't know what I'm doing. I feel lost. I feel overwhelmed. This is just proof that I'm a terrible play therapist and I should definitely just quit. But then you have your very next session and it goes really, really well. So you're thinking, maybe it's not just me. Maybe there's something else going on that I should look at. And that's what I want to talk about today, which is, what do you do when you feel lost or stuck? Because the reality is, it's not a matter of if you're going to feel lost or stuck using play therapy. It's a matter of when and how often. And over the years, I've kind of figured out some strategies that help me get back on track much sooner. And these are a lot of the things that we talk about in my, I call it my VIP, like, membership, Play Therapy Academy. And I just launched a new membership, which I'm super excited about. I launched the founding member program, which is basically my beta program. Currently, until I get a new name, I'm calling it my membership, formerly known as the Play Therapy Collective, because I have to come up with a new name. Long story about that one. Um, Anyways, if I don't come up with a new name, I'm going to have to deal with things legally that I don't want to have to deal with. So it was just easier for me to change it, but I haven't figured out a name yet. And we have gotten started and we had our first meeting this month. It was really awesome. One of the things that I'm super excited about this formerly known as Play Therapy Collective membership is that it's global, and I'm hoping that it'll stay global. It's I would say it's not as hands-on and high touch as Play Therapy Academy is. And I would say, kind of, if you're looking for a membership that kind of gives you support and not a high amount of commitment like Play Therapy Academy does. Play Therapy Academy is mostly for a lot of people who want a lot of hands-on contact and a lot of support to help them learn play therapy. Usually they're pursuing their RPT, registered play therapist credential. Not everybody is, but most people are in that group. So one of the things so the topic that I'm talking about today is something that comes up a lot when I'm doing consulting with play therapists, and that is, what do I do when I get lost? Or I'm not sure what to do. Or as we're kind of staffing and providing support, it becomes clear that somebody has gone into throw spaghetti against the wall and hope something sticks mode. We trust me, we have all done that. So no judgment there. We all do it at some point in time. The reality is, though, it just doesn't work very well. And so we have to get back on track. So that's what I want to talk about today, how to get back on track. If you're listening or watching the live replay, I mean, my mouth isn't working today. If you're watching live, I would love to know who's here. If you're watching live on Instagram, I would love to know who's here. Post your name in the comments, what population you work with. If you're watching live on YouTube or LinkedIn, post your name in the comments. What population are you working with? What play therapy model are you using? Have you figured that out yet? Because sometimes I think in the beginning, it takes a minute for people to figure out what play therapy model they align with. And I would also say get training to know how that model is applied. In Play Therapy Academy, a lot of what we do is help people apply, like what model are you aligning with that you want to use, and how are you applying that, and then what does that look like through each stage of the change process. And my hope is we'll do that in my formerly known as membership once I get a name for it. I'm actually leaning towards, you guys can give me some feedback. Although I'm kind of thinking I'm tied to this name for the new membership. I'm tied to, or when my mouth works today, the name I'm thinking about, which I'm kind of tied to mostly. I try it out for a little while to see if it'll stick. I've tried out, like, I would, I would probably say tried out 10 names trying to come up with a different name. But I'm leaning towards and kind of tied to right now Play Therapy Elevation Circle. My amazing virtual assistant May came up with an acronym for CIRCLE, which is connect, inspire, reflect, collaborate, learn, and elevate. I loved that. So anyways, that's why I'm leaning towards Play Therapy Elevation Circle for my new membership. I got off track again there. I get super excited about these memberships because it's a way to really connect and get support. So when people are feeling lost, overwhelmed, they have a place to go to get support. And so that's why I get really excited about them. And today, that's what I want to talk about, because these things come up a lot in my memberships. And when we do the staffing and we do the consulting, these are the things that we find help people get back on track. So I thought I would share them with you today, and let's get to it. Also, if you find this information helpful, please feel free to share it across your social media platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you know when we're going live all the time. On LinkedIn, if you're watching on LinkedIn and you say you're attending, I'm pretty sure it'll notify you when I'm going live. But feel free to share it, leave comments, join the conversation if you're live, join the conversation if you're watching the replay. So today, let's talk about some strategies that are going to help you get back on track when you're feeling stuck or lost in play therapy. The first thing I would say is, if you've listened to any of my past episodes, you probably know what I'm about to say, which is your case conceptualization. And before I go into that a little bit, here's one thing I wanted to kind of encapsulate what I'm about to say. These three things I want to share. I want to kind of encapsulate them in an image. So when you're thinking about these things, think about them as far as like creating a balance with these components. So think about a three-legged stool, right? If you have a two-legged stool, it's not going to stand up very high. A three-legged stool is much more sturdy. Four is even more sturdy, but I only have 3 points for today. So think about these as a three-legged stool. You need all three to have a balance. And sometimes what you'll find is maybe you're leaning a little heavier into one of these things than the other thing, and you do want to get back to the other thing. So this isn't do this, then this, then this, then this kind of concept that I want to talk about today. It's more about here are some things to keep in mind that are balanced. And when you're feeling a little lost, it might be because you're out of balance with one of these things. The first thing is case conceptualization. So your case conceptualization is what is your ability to form your working hypothesis. So years ago when I first got into play therapy, the training that I took with Eliana Gale, who is amazing, and most of you know that. She said something early on in one of the trainings I took with her, and that was this concept of working hypothesis. So I've been using it ever since, but I always like to try and give people credit where I get things from. So this idea of working hypothesis, and I love that. So working hypothesis is basically you formulate your hypothesis about what you think is going on, and you formulate your questions, and then that's kind of in science anyway, when you're doing research, and then you gather data to determine whether or not your working hypothesis is accurate or not accurate. So the way that I apply that concept using case conceptualization is that idea of I'm going to gather all the data at the beginning. So that very first session, that psychosocial assessment, I am gathering information. I'm gathering a lot of information. And then I'm going to continually gather information throughout each stage of the change process. The thing is, in the beginning, though, through that psychosocial assessment, I'm forming my working hypothesis that I'm going to test out throughout the treatment process. So case conceptualization is essentially what's underneath these behaviors that are creating distress or creating problems for my client, and what are the patterns that are sustaining it in the problem. So that's your case conceptualization. If that's something you want more of, I do have a course on this, and I've also talked about this in past live stream episodes, or podcasts, whichever one you're listening to. So if you want more info about that, you can always go back and listen to some of the episodes, or you can go to my website. I have a course there on it specifically for play therapy. So you're formulating your case conceptualization, which also is going to include how are you conceptualizing the role of parents? You don't want to leave that one out. I am a firm believer that children are part of, they don't exist in a vacuum, right? They exist in families. I look at families as like the cornerstone of any society or any community. Communities are only as strong as their families are strong in the community. That's kind of how I look at it. So if we're looking at children within their community and what's going on as part of our case conceptualization, and we're looking at children within their family system and what's going on in their family system, then our case conceptualization is going to include looking at children in context, which means in context of family and community, and making sure that you are figuring out the role of parents and how are you integrating parents into the treatment process as part of your initial case conceptualization. So it's really important to do that upfront assessment and conceptualization to get an idea of what's going on. And the thing is, your case conceptualization is going to be influenced by your play therapy model. So that's why it's really important to figure out what play therapy model that you align with, and then use that model for your initial case conceptualization. And here's the thing. So here's what I did. Like, I say this all the time in Play Therapy Academy. I'll be saying this in my new membership, which I think may be called Play Therapy Elevation Circle. I haven't figured out a name, so it feels weird talking about it because I haven't figured out a new name for it, which is, if you haven't figured out what play therapy model or you're aligning with, or you're just getting started, learn at least one. Get one play therapy model down pat. You can always integrate and add more later if you want. Or a lot of the play therapy models, like, it's just a matter of how are you integrating this new thing that you're learning into this theoretical framework. Like, for instance, I am a firm believer that using an attachment and neuroscience kind of lens, understanding those things and how things, I called them, understanding how neuroscience and what you're learning about neuroscience and what we know about neuroscience and attachment theory, those are concepts I feel like can be integrated into the vast majority of at least the seminal and historical models of play therapy, as the Association for Play Therapy calls them. Now we're getting, I would call, like, new generation of play therapy models that are more integrative, taking some of their foundations from seminal and historical and now taking in new information that we're learning with different kind of groundbreaking modalities or models, and how are those getting integrated into play therapy. Learn at least a model and then apply that model. Feel like you've got your kind of foundation with that model before trying to, like, do everything, because you can't. You need a model first, because your model is your guide, is like your guide through each phase of the treatment process. So when you're thinking case conceptualization, it's going to be influenced by your play therapy model. If you haven't figured out your play therapy model yet, then I would highly recommend exploring that and maybe at least learning one to get started. The second thing is that I wanted to talk about. So one is your case conceptualization is your guidepost. It's your working hypothesis. Your case conceptualization is going to be influenced by your theory model, your play therapy model. So when you feel like you've gotten lost, or you're not sure what to do, or you're thinking, oh, is this even working? You want to focus on the roots, which to me means figuring out what's going on. Go back to your case conceptualization, go back to your theory model, like, take a step back, go back to your case conceptualization, go back to your theory model, kind of look at this a different way. What are the roots of the problem? Where are we with that root? Your your play therapy model is going to help you figure out what stage of play therapy you're in and what you're doing in that specific stage of treatment. So if you're looking at the roots, like what are the roots of the problem? What does my play therapy model say is the reason these things are happening? And then I go back and kind of rework it in my head. What does that look like with this theory model, with these things that are creating the problem? And then in this stage of play therapy, what am I working on in this stage of play therapy? So that's going to help you get back on track. So it's kind of like your GPS. Think of your GPS, right? Your GPS tells you to do something, but maybe you took a wrong turn. And in the old days, it would say something like you would, recalculating, recalculating. So think about your stepping back as you recalculating until you hone in on where you're supposed to be. And then your GPS tells you where you are and helps you get back on track. The third thing that so that's the second leg of the stool. Focus on the roots. What are your theory model? What does your theory model say to do with these roots in which stage of treatment? So go back to the roots, go back to the foundation. And the third thing is relationship, relationship, relationship. So we work in a relational profession, right? We connect with people. Back in the day, it didn't used to be that way. It used to be like way back in the day, it was more like analytical, and we stay professionally neutral, and we don't want to influence with relationship. Now we understand the balance of theory with therapeutic rapport and the importance of that therapeutic rapport and helping clients feel safe and secure to stay in the change process as they work through some of those challenging things. And this includes parents, relationship with parents, forming that therapeutic rapport with parents takes an intentional effort. And I advocate that you can't really do that in a 5 or 10 minute, and it's never 5 minutes. Those check-ins at the end of the session or before the session, to me, there's a whole host of problems with that. And if your goal is to build rapport with parents so that you can help engage them to be part of the change process and really support them to help their child and know what to do, because ultimately you're going away and parents are staying there. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is we are a very short we have a very short lifespan in the life of our clients, in the life of our clients. So I'm going to give you an example. This is like almost 35 years ago. I was in graduate school, for my master's degree in social work. I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I know I want to do this, be a therapist. I know I want to work with kids. I know I want to do play therapy. And the way to do that is to get my master's degree. And I chose being a clinical social worker. What I didn't know is we would have to do these policy classes. And I'm sitting in my first policy class thinking, I have no idea what the heck this guy is talking about. Like 80% of this policy stuff he's talking about makes absolutely no sense to me. And then he did a thing, which to this day, I can conjure up the image right away. And to me, this speaks to the importance of involving parents. This speaks to the importance of your client's family system. And here's what he did. So back in the day, when I was in grad school, we didn't have whiteboards. We had chalkboards. And so I was in this big classroom, and there were chalkboards, like all one side, like one wall of chalkboards, and then the perpendicular wall to it had another line to it. So imagine this big classroom with two walls of chalkboard. He took a piece of chalk, started on one end of the room with the chalkboard, and went all the way around to the very end of the chalkboard on the other wall. So we have this gigantic line. And then he went to some random place, kind of in the middle-ish of the chalkboard, and he made a dot on the line. So there's this big giant line, and there's this little dot. And he said, "This is you in the life of your client." And if I were to guess, I think he was trying to make the point about the importance of policy, but I didn't take it that way. But he said, "This is you in the life of your client." And and that's true, right? We might be a bigger dot or a smaller dot, depending on how long they're in treatment with us, but we're still a dot in the life of that child. Hopefully, their family will be with them the rest of the time. Their parents are always going to be their parents, always, whether or not they stay with their parents, or whether or not they have a good relationship with their parents, or whether or not their parents are there for most of their life. That experience is that's their parents are with them much longer than we are. And think about that. Kids are with their parents and their family for the rest of the week, and they may meet with you for 45 minutes to an hour, but the rest of the time they're with their family and their parents. So in my mind, why wouldn't we want to support parents? It's a hard job. And when your children are struggling and you don't know what to do, and you have to go to a stranger to help you, then that's a hard thing too. And our ability to form a relationship with parents is as critical, in my opinion, as it is with forming that relationship with the child. Because if we want to make that impact, then forming that relationship with parents and that therapeutic rapport with consistent meetings is an important way to do that. So I am going to take a minute now to do some full disclosure. Some of you probably know, if you've been watching and listening before, I have dogs, and my husband has gone off to work, and my dog Luna, come here. Yes. So my dog Luna is in the room. So if you hear weird sounds, like moaning or scratching, I promise you I'm not doing weird things in my office. Is my dog Luna digging in the carpet, and then she rolls around in the carpet making moaning sounds. So now she's looking at me because she hears me saying her name, and she's pretty sure she's not in trouble, but she's not sure why I'm calling her name. Anyway, so if you hear weird sounds, that's my dog Luna. So back on track with parents, forming relationships with parents. That's the safety we create. It's that therapeutic use of self where we are authentically connecting with our clients, our young clients, and we're authentically connecting with parents in the play therapy process to bring about the change, help facilitate change throughout the play therapy process. I always say that the relationship is the glue. Like if all else, if you're feeling lost and you're not sure what to do, lean into relationship. And then at some point, recalculate your GPS and take that step back, go back to your case conceptualization, go back to your theory model, go back to kind of what are the roots that I identified and how I may make sense of what these roots are based on my theory model. Like why are these things happening in this client's life? What are the roots of the problem? What are the patterns that are sustaining it? What stage of the change process are we in? That's your recalculating. At the heart of it all, though, is relationship, because I feel like if you're not sure what you're doing and you're feeling a little lost, leaning into the relationship is the most effective thing you can do while you're feeling a little uncomfortable in the process. Just trust that you will get there. Trust that the relationship is, I would say, would I say that it's the most important thing? I would say that it's a really, really important thing. I wouldn't say it's the only thing. I would say it's really, 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 really important. And building that therapeutic rapport is going to help your client progress through each stage of the change process. So that is it for today. Let me just do a quick recap. What we're talking about today is what to do when you feel stuck in play therapy. The first thing is make sure to do your case conceptualization in the very beginning of treatment. When your clients are starting that very first session, you want to make sure to gather all the information. Meet with parents, gather all the details, figure out when and how these things get activated that are bringing them in. Look at when it happens, where it happens, how it happens, what's going on in the co-parenting relationship. Are there any big family changes? All of the things. Gather all the things. And then your play therapy model is going to influence how you make sense of these. But your case conceptualization is your initial working hypothesis of what you're going to continually assess and gather information as you go through every stage of treatment. You're always kind of coming back to that working hypothesis and seeing where you are in that process. When you get lost, because it's not a matter of if, we all get lost. When you get lost, then focus on the roots. Go back to the foundation. This is where you're going to, if I use my GPS analogy again, this is where you're recalculating when you've taken a wrong turn or you're not sure which turn you should take or where you should go. This is where you're going to take a step back, do a little recalculating. And what that's going to look like is you go back to your play therapy model, you go back to your initial case conceptualization. Your initial case conceptualization and the information you've gathered up until the point where you've gotten stuck is going to help you better understand what are the roots of the problem and what are the patterns that are sustaining it. Your play therapy model is going to help you make sense of how you understand what those factors are and what stage of the play therapy change process you're in, because depending on what stage you're in will influence what you're going to do. The only exception I would say to this is child-centered play therapy, because you're always leading. Sorry, I got that backwards. With play therapy, child-centered play therapy, you're always following the child. You're not leading. So your case conceptualization is going to influence what's going on in the sessions. It may play a factor in your clinical decision making about your tracking and how you're tracking. Never leading, though. Even in your tracking, you're not leading. So the only but even for child-centered play therapy, you're still leaning into your play therapy model. And when you're feeling a little lost and overwhelmed and feeling like you're not making any progress, then after sessions, when you're doing your recalculating, then you are looking at your model, looking at your initial case conceptualization, figuring out where you are, and how is that going to influence how you move forward once you figure out the path you need to go. So that's the second leg of the stool. If we use that three-legged stool, the third one is relationship. And I think whenever we feel lost in the sessions, then leaning into the relationship, that automatically is going to help get you back on track, just because the relationship is kind of like the glue that helps that child or helps that caregiver feel safe to trust you when things are feeling difficult and don't make sense, trust you through that process, and feel safe to do that. So that therapeutic rapport is really leaning into your therapeutic use of self. You're leaning into congruence in sessions. So your congruence is what I'm experiencing inside is reflecting externally. So whenever you feel lost, if you can just kind of get congruent with unconditional positive regard in the moment, trusting that this is going to be fine, trusting that relationship makes a difference, then that'll help you get back on track, at least in the session. And then you can do your recalculating after the session is over. And through all of this, I think all of us need a community around us to support, so we can go to, hey, I'm struggling with this. What do you think? Because I think a community, at least this is what I find with Play Therapy Academy, and even when we had our first, my new membership, the formerly known as Play Therapy Collective membership, which I believe is going to be called Play Therapy Elevation Circle. Feels weird talking about it because I don't have a new name for it yet. But even that, we had our first consultation meeting there, and I saw the same thing happen, which is you have a community of people around you who support you, who give you ideas, who help you think about things differently, help you figure out what's going on. Looking at the themes in the play therapy session kind of helps you get back on track and not feel like you're doing it alone, which can feel like a really heavy burden to do this alone. So, anyways, I just saw that my cousin, I think it's my cousin, looks like my cousin, joined. He must have seen I went live. Hey, Mike. Back on track. So, anyway, so I wanted to, for those of you who are interested, I do have one more spot left in Play Therapy Academy. So if you are interested in or maybe you're like, I just really need a lot more support. My imposter syndrome is getting the better of me. I feel like I'm not doing a good job. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. If that's you and you're interested in getting a lot of support, Play Therapy Academy we have an amazing community of play therapists. We staff cases in there. People present every time. There's always two people presenting. So even when it's not your turn to present, you're still learning from what other people say. I find this happens all the time in there. Like somebody will be presenting a case and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm taking up so much time. And then all the other members in the meeting are like, oh no, I'm learning too. I have this problem too. So I want to see how this gets worked out for you, because I'm noticing some things I can do too. And I struggle with these things too. So it's a really supportive group of people, and so you not only have my almost 35 years of experience in the child and adolescent field, you have the experience of everybody else in the membership. So, if you are interested in Play Therapy Academy, you can pop over to my website at rhplaytherapytraining.com. That is rhplaytherapytraining.com. So Renewing Hearts Play Therapy Training. So pop over to my website, rhplaytherapy.r. My mouth doesn't work again. rhplaytherapytraining.com. Go over to the supervision page. Also, my amazing virtual assistant Brill is posting the links in the comments if you want to go there and look at the links in the comments for or go ahead and schedule a free 30-minute video with me, just a video call where we talk about Play Therapy Academy, make sure it's a good fit for you, because I feel like it's important for it to be a good fit. There's no obligation. If you decide it's not the right time, then it's not the right time, and we have a really good conversation. That's kind of how I look at it. So go ahead, but I only have one spot left for now. I'm probably going to have 2 spots, but right now I only have 1 spot because I said I might have 2 because I have another person who's going to be finishing up and applying for her RPT credentials soon. So she'll be finishing up. And if you think, oh, everybody's further along than me, they are not. Everybody feels that way at the beginning. You'll come in and you'll realize you get embraced by a very caring and supportive community. You're not the only one. Others have felt that way too. And gaining that confidence and getting rid of imposter syndrome feels good. So if that's you and you're ready to get rid of your imposter syndrome and you would like to feel more confident, then you will definitely want to schedule that free video call with me and see if Play Therapy Academy is a good fit for you. My other membership is closed right now. The one I haven't figured out the name for yet because I have to change the name to avoid going to court. That one is closed for now. So the only membership I have available right now is Play Therapy Academy. So, alrighty, that is it for this week, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.